All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Zoop podcast. Thank you for joining us on the live stream. You could also find this on YouTube, Facebook, I believe Instagram as well. If you're more into the podcast audio version of this, we are on Spotify and soon to be on iTunes. Probably by the time you hear this, we're there. So just search for the Zoop podcast on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, iTunes, everywhere else. Thank you for joining us. Also, if you are part of the live stream, feel free to ask questions on Facebook, on YouTube. We'll do our best to have some fun with those questions and comments as well. But today, joining us is, I would say, Kraig, veteran indie comics creator, Kraig Rasmussen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Veteran, I've never been called that before, but I'll take it. Thank you.
Well, I've realized, Kraig, I mean, thinking about this interview and what we're going to discuss, one of the things that popped to mind is that I think we've known each other for almost 9 or 10 years.
10 years, yeah, something like that. It's crazy.
And I think it was San Diego Comic-Con, maybe?
Yeah, I'm guessing. Yeah, I couldn't think of something else that it would have been. That seems like the best venue for the chances of it, you know?
Sure. And so for people listening, I guess sometimes it takes 10 years of knowing someone before you actually get to work together on something. So
something like that. I literally said just as much on Keeping It Geekly last night. I was like, it's kind of crazy that we've known each other for so long and then we just end up happening to work together. And then I was like, actually, that's sort of the comics business. You know, you make some friends, you finally get in the same rhythm and things just kind of work out, you know?
Yeah. And you're a Southern California guy. Like I see you at all the shows, San Diego, Los Angeles Comic-Con, WonderCon. Whereabouts are you based?
I'm based in Phoenix currently, but I do a lot of business in LA, so I have a lot of friends there. You know, I'm a Northern California kid originally, actually, so the San Francisco indie scene is where I really cut my teeth.
Gotcha. And oh man, what used to be up there? Ape used to be up there, right?
Ape and the original WonderCon, the good WonderCon. No offense to Anaheim WonderCon.
None taken. Look, I'm a New Yorker at heart, but I've been in Southern California for over 15 years now. So WonderCon's kind of the hometown show.
Yeah, it's just a weird location for a con. I think, you know, it's one of those like, well, there's nothing around the convention center, so what are we going to do tonight, kind of thing. But you know,
yeah,
gotta take what you can get.
I hear you there. Well, look, you're here today to promote Odds and Ends. This is your campaign that is currently live on Zoop. The link is in the bottom. The link is also in the description. It's in the show notes. So wherever you're watching or listening, please check that out. Click the link. Go support Kraig. But Kraig, why don't you tell us a little bit about Odds and Ends, what it is, why you're crowdfunding it, and why it has to come out into the world.
Well, Odds and Ends is sort of a retake of a personal anthology of Lost and Found Tales that I published in 2017. Here's the original edition behind me.
Let's see it. Let's see it
here.
Yeah.
Nice 100-page comics anthology graphic novel. You know, originally when I published, sorry, please.
Was that self-published?
Yeah, this was self-published. It was just an exclusive for San Diego in 2017. And I sold through most of them at the convention. So I really only had like 10 or 12 copies left, which mostly ended up in the hands of personal connections and, you know, the occasional sale after the fact or whatever. But it was a thing that was floating around a little bit. And I was always proud of it. I mean, the packaging turned out really nice. But I will fully admit, I will fully cop to the fact that I wish that I hadn't allowed pencil pages to be included in this, but because of the nature of it being a retrospective anthology at the time, I was totally comfortable with that. But looking back with even more retrospect, so to speak, and upon request to reprint this, I realized that I had not only 100 more pages to make it possible to do 2 volumes of this, but that actually I just decided to sit down and ink everything that was presented in pencil. And furthermore, one of the stretch goals is to actually color everything as well, because this book was partially, let's try to flip through it as best I can on the camera here. So like I said, It was partially in pencil, you know, so it's like a little bit harder to see some of these pages, but the story is, I think, really solid. This is an Alice in Wonderland story adapted directly.
It is kind of tough to see just the pencil,
exactly.
online.
Well, and that's why I'm going to ink it, Jordan. That's it right there.
Yeah. But hey, people listening and watching, don't worry if you can't see it here. You go to zoop.gg, you'll find Odds and Ends. You go back it there, you'll get your own print edition of Odds and Ends. And like you said, it's going to be 2 books for this
Two
campaign.
books, 100 pages each. Everything will be inked at least, if not colored as well. Here, I'll jump to a page that has some color on it, just so you know I didn't phone it in completely. Here's my King David story, Kingdom of David. I'm very happy with this. Blood and Guts, Swords and Sandals. Very
Excellent.
much inspired by Conan, a much more mystical take on the King David story than you would find in the Bible. Here's a section from a short story called Digits that was written by Jason McNamara that has a new life as a book called Ghost Band that I'm still involved in a small way. But essentially, you know, that's mostly, there's only 2 sections that are in pencil in the original edition. And then there's 2 sections in the new material that I have to ink as well. So it's really not a ton of inking. The main thing that is the biggest addition would be the image that's on the cover here. This is The Adventures of Dr. Cotton Hickox. He's my time travel character. And that was presented 11 pages in pencil in the original edition. And this time, what I'm actually doing is including the entire first issue, 24 pages, fully inked. And I'm really happy with the way that's turning out. So it's a really exciting story. It has like 5 timelines, literally like five different eras of history in the first issue alone. It's really crazy.
So, let's talk about that, because you know, when we started talking about doing this campaign, a lot of your focus and emphasis was on like sci-fi, but now it seems like you have time travel, you have historical, you have biblical themes and genres in the book. It seems like you run the gamut. I'm sure I'm leaving anything out, so please feel free to like touch on any genre or something I didn't just mention.
Yeah, no, I mean, so historical fiction, historical epics it's a thing that's kind of close to my heart. I'm a big fan of movies like Lawrence of Arabia. I just love the expansive kind of take you to a different place and drop you off so you have an experience in another time. And I think and humor as well. And I think that by having the time travel story in there, which has multiple eras in it, it sort of ties all of those historical elements together, even though there's only 2 stories that are not science fiction, I believe, in the final edition, the 2-volume edition of Odds and Ends. But because they're, you know, ancient history and there's ancient history involved in the time travel story, I feel like I kind of get away with it a little bit. But you're right. No, I mean, science fiction is my preferred genre. It for some reason speaks to my heart. And, you know, it's just like, it's an endless well of imagination for me. Whereas when it comes to superheroes, I just almost feel like I don't have a take a lot of times. Like, I'm just like, you know, I have a lot of friends who are doing the best superhero books on the market. You know, not to say like I got these friends, but like it's one of those things where I've been in the community for so long that I'm watching people like Liam Sharp do like amazing Batman and Wonder Woman or amazing Green Lantern. And I'm kind of like, why would I come in where I don't even feel like I have a perspective on that when people like Liam are doing what they're doing, you know? So, but because science fiction is so close to my heart, it's easy to just jump in.
And you do it all. You're writing, you're drawing, or I should say penciling, inking. Are you coloring as well?
Most of it, yeah. And as far as the stretch goal is concerned, it just really depends on, you know, how much we overshoot the goal, to determine how much I actually pay a colorist to do versus what I do. I'm perfectly comfortable doing it. It's just a question of like, how much time do I have to actually put in before, you know, it's too late to deliver this in a timely fashion. I really, you know, I've already put a June, you know, earliest delivery June in there because I think that's relatively fair for a crowdfunding campaign. It's only 4 months.
Sure.
And the outside is 6 months, which is still relatively fair. I mean, I'm still waiting for books I backed on Kickstarter last year sometime, you know, so like, and I've backed some stuff on Zoop too, but you know, it hasn't been so long that I threw you under the bus in that way. But yeah, I mean, it just comes down to the fact that I'm working for the new incarnation of Gold Key Comics, self-publishing a bunch of other stuff this year, and a few other things I can't discuss. So
is that like breaking news? I had no idea Gold Key was coming back.
I mean, sort of breaking news, I guess. They've given me permission to talk about it a little bit. They need the heat as much as I do, you know.
Wait a sec. Hold on a sec. Because hold on. Because now we got to wait. Okay. There we go.
I'm a Gold Key
so
kid.
It's got to be legit. But wait, so are we talking like Magnus and Solar and Turok, or are those licenses still tied up
Those
I
licenses
think
are still tied up, and I'm not sure where those are tied up actually, because they're dead at Dynamite. Dynamite's not currently publishing them. They were,
sure.
and I keep being told that Dynamite has it, but I'm kind of like, look, proof is in the pudding, man. I don't see anything hitting the shelves. There's not been a single ad or
Wow.
announcement for like 2 years. So
So blink
I
twice,
think
blink twice if there's a possibility that Gold Key is going to be putting out those books. I'm not seeing any blinks. Okay, okay.
it's a blink and a half. I give you a blink and a half because so here's what I've been told about all that stuff. That is not the priority. The priority is not to become the original license brand that they were. However, to me, the more exciting license that they actually do have, one of two. I can only talk about one of the two. The other one is brand new. We can't talk about it yet, but it's
Sure.
pretty cool. But the one that they do have is the license for Boris Karloff's name and likeness. So the Boris Karloff Mystery Magazine is coming back with a new title, the Boris Karloff Gold Key Mysteries. And I am working on that book for sure. I'm actually I have an image on the desk right now that's going to be one of the covers. And I have 1 to 2 stories I'm working on for that and a bunch of other pitches in play. I will say they've expressed some extreme interest in the Kingdom of David story. So it's most likely that King David will get a new life at Gold Key. But yeah, I mean, I can't talk too much more about it, but essentially,
No,
they're looking to become a fresh incarnation while still having the retro flavor that you would expect from Gold Key, which is one of the reasons that I'm working for them, because I do have that retro flavor to my work, and then influence is very heavy and it's visible. So
that's really exciting stuff. And for me, that's the first I'm hearing about Gold Key making a comeback in any way whatsoever. That's super cool. Before you started talking about Gold Key, I did have a question for you because you mentioned you write, you draw, you do it all. And I never paid much attention to the term cartoonist before, but I've come to learn that it means basically writer and artist in one. So, am I correct in that definition? And part two of that question is, do you consider yourself a cartoonist?
definitely, I consider myself a cartoonist. I don't know if that actually means auteur, writer, artist, complete package. I don't know.
Yeah,
That could just be a case by case usage as far as who you heard talking about it last, or a couple of consistent sources sounded like that. I think that is kind of the expectation a lot of times, maybe because of cartoon strips like newspaper style comics.
sure,
Um, but cartooning is really telling a story with images, the same as illustration, but cartooning is typically leans towards comics and cartoon strips. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't always write for myself. I'm working on a script by Cody Goodfellow right now. He's a great writer. Did a book called Mystery Meat, wrote a great novel called Un-America that's gotten some heat and it's pretty popular, I think. I'm working with novelist Jeff Chon, who wrote Good Guy with a Gun recently, hashtag Good Guy with a Gun, sorry. And then the guy who wrote Kingdom of David, Scott Rickles, is one of the writers on the Taika Waititi, Daniel Craig vodka dancing video that came out over the holidays and got kind of a lot of heat. And on top of that, I'm also working, like I showed you, the Jason McNamara story that's in there. So he's basically, there are 4 writers that are involved in the odds and ends stories. Just by happenstance for Scott, I did 2 stories that were film pitches. Jeff sent me a script recently that I basically just said, what would you think about me adding this to the new odds and ends? It's the only new thing I'm drawing for the odds and ends anthologies. Simply because there is the retrospective element, like the tracing my progress element. I thought it'd be kind of fun to just do a brand new story for the very end, so that there's something that represents today. The hits of yesterday, today, or what is it? Hits of yesteryear, yesterday, and today. Whatever they used to say on those radio commercials. So basically,
yeah, for sure.
I'm not afraid to work with writers. It's just that I can just move so much faster when I'm writing for myself, and I'm just absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of ideas that I have for stories. So I just try to pursue those and see what I can get out of them, So that's kind of what it comes down to. I would love to, work with more writers. I'm hoping to have another script from Cody once I get done with the one I'm working on. And, we'll just see what happens. There's great writers out there. I'd be stupid if I just absolutely denied the opportunity to work with them.
Oh, for sure, man. And look, you keep putting yourself there. Like I said, you've been, you know, beating the drum and on the circuit for so long. It's good that these relationships are forming and cultivating and now coming to the surface, and things are happening. I'm sure they've been happening all along, but like not every person in this industry has like a list of like at least 4 people that they're currently working with. So it's very
Yeah.
cool that you have so much going on, and we're gonna have to talk about the gold key thing off camera too, man. I'm still like super excited about that.
Well,
I
definitely.
also
I've
wanted
already
to,
told Eric that I'm trying to bring them into the Zoop fold. So, their
say no
books will also
more.
be crowdfunded for the first couple of years. So I'm working on that. I can't make any promises for the very first campaign because I think that's already rolling elsewhere. You might know who I'm talking about, but maybe in the near future, because I mean, obviously, crowdfunding is kind of the way the industry works, at least by half. So it makes sense. Um,
Yeah,
I think that it's like it's a secret right now, but it's been a well kept secret on purpose. But very soon, the doors are going to open for publicity on Gold Key, and my appearance on these podcasts is part of that. That's why I said like I recently just asked for permission. I'm like, can I start talking about this? I really want to start talking about this. So it's
it's
exciting.
exciting stuff. And I also wanted to ask about Monkey Gong. What is Monkey Gong? Um, I'll just leave it at that. Tell us about Monkey Gong and what it is.
I just got a warning that we're having some streaming problems.
Oh,
Um,
it looks good over here.
Okay. So Monkey Gong is my personal publishing label. I published all of these books here that you see under the label of Monkey Gong: Technopolis, Sojourners, Odds and Ends, and The Furthest Reaches Science Fiction Folio. So Monkey Gong is a weird word that I came up with a really long time ago. And to me, it means my primal voice, the monkey, my primal alarm that's going off, and I embraced it as a publishing label because in science fiction, social commentary and commentary on human behavior and the human condition is a very big part of science fiction. Like those dense themes, I think, make the best science fiction. So for me, having a primal alarm clock going off, or all these things that I'm, pondering that are important to me in society and about humans, it seems like it was just a good fit. And now it seems like it's a thing that's catching some attention. People kind of like how strange of a word it is. And so when it comes to being a science fiction label, strange is
Yeah,
good, you know? Does that answer your question? I don't know.
absolutely. No, I love it. I love it. Like, I mean, it's the same thing when people ask about Zoop. We don't have to get into the name, but naming something is always interesting. And Monkey Gong is, like you said, the primal alarm. I never would have expected that that's like what it means. That was a very, very cool answer, actually.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure people are tired of hearing me say it because I have to explain it all the time, but I'm sure you can relate.
because yeah, because it's an interesting name. People want to know. Um, I do want to take a step back, though. Being such like a fan of science fiction and all these other genres, I just kind of want to. I always like to know like who are some of your influences, whether that's in comics or not in comics. But like, is there anyone that you model yourself after as a writer, as an artist, or just draw inspiration from, um, in any sort of creative sense? Who those people might be?
I mean, I don't typically model myself after anything because the influences are too vast. There's way too many things that have influenced me and inspired me over the time. But people who really opened my eyes to the art of comics would definitely be Mobius and Barry Windsor Smith, Richard Corbin. I mean, one of the great originals, Richard Corbin, just like Mike Mignola, one of the great originals. It's like these people who have just this incredible vision that's quintessential to them. And they have a unique interpretation of the medium. That's I would love to be able to say that about myself. Oh, got a co-host on the show.
Yeah,
um
I'm sorry. Yeah, he wasn't gonna leave me alone. So
it's all good, it's all good. Every once in a
sorry
while
about
there'll be a
that.
cat in my view here as well. But yeah, I mean, as far as cartooning, that's definitely, I have to say that Mobius was kind of a big sea change, probably because the time that I discovered him was a time where I was having trouble being fast as an artist, and I was also really in need of learning to pull my camera back and not just be kind of claustrophobic in my panels. And I mean, Mobius
Interesting.
just
Yeah.
gives, there's so much space in his work. There's just so much room and things. There's just like a great, negative space and like design of shapes and things like that in his work. So it's really inspiring. Plus, he's incredibly prolific. And Richard Corbin is similar, where he just sort of came into my consciousness around that time, even though I was aware of him because of his involvement in heavy metal, same with Mobius and same with Bernie Wrightson, they were all involved in heavy metal pretty big, which was actually an early influence that I didn't know was there until I got away from superhero comics. And I was like, that's right. I do recognize these guys and I do love their work, you know? So that was huge. And European comics in general, the diversity of stories and styles, I think is pretty big. But as far as story itself, you know, I've studied screenwriting to a fairly extensive degree because I would love to make a film or two or write a handful of scripts. I've got a lot of ideas, like I said. But I think, you know, I highly recommend studying screenwriting for anybody who makes comics because it's a good way to nail down a story in its barest bones and get everything clear, get the themes clear, you know, get the through lines and the arcs very clear so that you can actually work quickly to achieve the end of your story. Because comics are, it's a tough road to hoe. It can be really hard to finish a comic, you know?
Yeah.
So anything helps as far as instruction. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd say that studying screenwriting helped me to get away from being too influenced by others as far as my style of writing and kind of try to write more like myself. I mean, that said, though, I watch a ton of science fiction and watch a ton of films and read as many comics as I can get my hands on. So I'm sure that there are things in the soup, you know, that are actually, you know, having more of an influence than is conscious. But yeah, you know, for the most part, I try to avoid a little bit of conscious influence, partially because I used to be too influenced by like Jim Lee or Todd McFarlane at the time when I was reading superhero comics. And so no matter what I wanted, I still ended up drawing like the Jim Lee arm or some generic faces that were a little too rote because I was studying people who were working on really hard deadlines as opposed to, you know, looking at, I don't know, just fine art and studying fine art and trying to actually lean into what makes characters individual and special. So I don't know. I don't copy anybody, man.
And you meant, I hear you. I hear you. You're a unique individual.
Well, we all are.
You had mentioned sort of discovering heavy metal. Yeah. You had mentioned discovering heavy metal, you know, sort of after like the superhero comics. So just take me through like a quick origin story in the world of comics. Like what were the first comics that you discovered that you read and, you know, were you young, sort of like already a teenager or, you know, some people are like, hey, I never read a comic until I was like 25. So where do you fall in there?
Yeah. I mean, until I was about 12, you know, it was mostly like Donald Duck was really, I hadn't been exposed to that many comics. Partially, there just wasn't a lot of pop culture in my world, I think, when I was younger. And then I moved to a new neighborhood. And the first new friend I made in the neighborhood had a closet full of comics. And I just was like, what is this? And I had just discovered, it was about 12. I just discovered that I actually enjoyed drawing a lot and that it was becoming quickly addictive. And the second that I realized you can draw as a job, that's actually something that people could do as work. Like, hello, you know? And so I was then obsessed. And at that time it was, like I said, it was Todd McFarlane working on Spider-Man and Jim Lee working on X-Men. And they both quickly transitioned over to Image where it became Wildcats and Spawn. And, you know, I still really am impressed by a lot of that work. When I look back, you know, I had a time where I rebelled against it when I really got into, you know, finer art and European comics and things like that. But I've come full circle big time because I mean, you can't deny the talent. I mean, Jim Lee is like a human lithograph machine. The guy can just pump out art. It's insane. And some of it's so dynamic and just bold as hell, you know, so it's undeniable. And even what Todd McFarlane's doing right now, he's really clearly enjoying inking, even though he's doing digital inking, he's really enjoying himself. And it's hard to deny when somebody's enjoying themselves. In fact, I'd say that's what makes the best art. That's why Mike Mignola is so great because he enjoys what he does, you know? So, I mean, I think a big influence though, right around that time, really quickly when the Image transition happened, things like Legend, the Legend imprint at Dark Horse happened where you had Frank Miller, you had Mike Mignola, you had Arthur Adams, you had all these people doing their own thing. You had people like Matt Wagner, not on the Legend imprint, but doing Grendel. That was a huge influence for me as far as world building. I mean, you can't build much of a bigger world than Grendel built, where it starts in the 80s and then suddenly leaps 500 years into the future. And there's like 25 more stories told in that time. It's insane. It's just like a really, really densely packed world full of different styles and stuff. So there's a lot of great work that came out in the 90s that really, really pushed me and in some ways pushed me away from my superhero roots. And then I eventually like found my way back and, you know, going to art school helped, but, you know, rediscovering comics through the lens of European comics, I got to admit was huge. And I'm still pretty addicted to European comics. I can't get enough because it's like it's like hidden gems that I didn't know existed, and they were already always out there the whole time that I was reading these other comics. So
Sure,
I
sure.
now have a pretty decent sized collection of dense European comics. And the other one that I have to mention, because I keep forgetting when people
Yeah,
ask me the influence question, is Paul Pope. That guy absolutely
yeah. Say no
cleaved
more.
my consciousness in half, like to where it's just like the boldness of his ink line and the speed at which he works and the size at which he works. I mean, the guy's pages, I'm not kidding, are like, you can't even see how big they are because my hands are
Yeah, no
outside of the
kidding.
frame. They're so big. I saw the Batman Year 100 original pages at the Cartoon Art Museum in San Francisco like 10 years ago when Pope was there to do a live speaking engagement. And I just was floored. They're 3 times the size of other comic book pages. And I just was like, why would you, one,
Wow.
why would you do this? But two, how do you do this? you know? So
Yeah, I was just gonna say, how do you scan that? How do you get
I,
that into a book?
dude, I don't know. Put it on an OSE rolling
Yeah,
scanner and
I don't know.
just, who knows, man?
I
Photographer?
guess, man. I
I
guess.
don't know. So to this day, I
Right?
still don't know. Maybe he's working smaller, but I imagine it probably feels like he's hamstrung when he does. You know?
Probably, yeah. How do you work? Do you work digital or you work traditional 11 by 17 or like what's your?
Yep. 11 by
Okay.
17 traditional pen and ink, and then digital color because I'm afraid to color my originals. I'm getting into it now. I'm doing a lot more sketch covers and stuff. So I'm kind of training myself to do live color and be a little more comfortable with it. But I just feel like I'm going to ruin my my labored pen and ink, and I
Well,
used to be a lot slower, so that was a lot scarier. But now I'm getting faster, so I'm like, okay, let's take a couple risks. So
nuh Craig is great at traditional coloring. He has some sketch covers for sale during his crowdfunding campaign that he's going
it's
to
true.
color. They're amazing. Do not
It's true. Here,
don't
I
think that
do have
it's
a.
not going to come out good.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm actually going to put up some new examples of full color sketch covers. Here's a
Oh, cool.
Sojourners sketch cover. This is actually black and white still, but I'm going to the art store tomorrow to get some alcohol markers so that I can actually color this one. But yeah, so I
Awesome.
am. The cool thing about being a self-publisher is I have a lot more control over doing sketch covers, printing however I want.
Absolutely. No, those look really cool.
I'm pretty happy
And
with them.
and this is your first foray into crowdfunding, is that correct?
Yeah, this is my first
So been
time, and I'm loving it.
I, well, I'm glad that you're having a positive experience so far. Let's keep that tally going. Let's hit that goal. And then, of course, hopefully, ultimately, we have a happy Craig on our hands. Also, though, I kind of wanted to touch really quickly. Do you feel so far? I mean, as someone who's been self-publishing for so long, do you feel that crowdfunding is an advantage, or is it just a little bit like what does it bring to someone who's already been self-publishing, who knows how to kind of put this content out by yourself? A lot of people who turn to crowdfunding maybe don't necessarily have that experience that you have. What does crowdfunding add to someone who's been self-publishing for a while?
I would say my immediate reaction, especially the way that we are doing, uh, the attention that we're giving to this campaign, and I hired a PR person in addition to the PR through you guys, just to absolutely blow it out if I can, and it's doing what I have always wanted to get out of the online community of comics, which is that it is in many ways it feels as rewarding as doing a convention and having people walk up to the table. It seems like for some reason, having my own site with my own brand and my books for sale just made zero impact. But using the Zoop platform has actually brought things back around in a way that it just feels like my audience is paying attention, as opposed to social media where it's just, I think everybody's so distracted by all the stuff on social media. Obviously there's a ton of amazing art being published on social media. People just post stuff every day that's just incredible. And in some cases those are pinups and they're not people's comics. And that's one of the reasons that I'm not as prolific at posting, because I'm actually working on a lot of stuff that's sequential art that I can't share because I don't want to give away the story, or I'm doing it for
Sure.
Gold Key or whatever. And it's like making a movie. It's done a year in advance sometimes, and it's just like not a thing I can post. So I'm not getting the same engagement through that source. But by doing a Zoop, I'm really, really happy with the outreach so far. I mean, it's really nice. I'm getting messages from people. I'm getting tons of Twitter interactions, and people are being awesome. You know, there's nothing
That's
about
great.
the
Yeah.
toxic social media at all to be found. It's really beautiful. So it is an
I'm glad
advantage.
to hear that. Yeah, I mean, look, it gives a sense of urgency. Like there's an event happening, a
Yeah,
reason for everyone to come together, like that, versus just your web store that's up 365 days a year. This is, a
exactly.
special event. It's a moment. Let's bring everybody together. Like have the support of the community. I think we're over a third funded already. We've been live for less than 48 hours, so it's off to a great start. We keep pressing. We keep doing more cool stuff to promote. And yeah, guys, for everybody listening, watching, check the link on the screen. The link's in the show notes. Go support Kraig. There's everything from just the book, signed books, sketches, covers, different size commissions. I believe a
Hmm.
lot of his back catalog is all available. So go support. Kraig's a great guy. He's been doing this for a really long time. You don't want to miss out on his stuff. Kraig, before you go, I have two just kind of rapid fire questions for you. Number one, what's your desert island book or your desert island run?
My desert island, like the thing I would most desire to work on outside of my own work.
No, the book that if you're stuck on a desert island, that's the only thing that you have to read.
Oh, God, dude, that's tough. I
It's
mean,
like
probably just have to take,
your favorite story.
yeah, I'd probably just have to take the Mobius library in general, like all those epic tabloids that were published and all the blueberries as well, so that I just get all the Mobius, all the version of the Jean Girard and the Mobius, versions of that guy. Cause I cannot stop being impressed by his work. It's just some of the most quintessentially alive and imaginative comics art. And he doesn't aspire to feel hyper realistic or to be hyper cartoony. It's right down the middle. It can be either or. I mean, I love Barry Windsor Smith too, but I mean, there's just, I don't know, something about Mobius, something really special. It's like I was saying before, that it's clear that guy loves to draw. And I think that his
Sure.
love for drawing is so infectiously visible through his craft that I can't help but kind of remind myself that I need to make sure that that's what I'm feeling in my own craft. So there you go.
I mean, wow, very, very well put. And I'll allow entire Mobius run as your answer to the desert island question. And I do have a feeling that you've already answered my next question, which is alive or dead, who is one crew that you would collaborate with?
Well, there's no way to collaborate with Mobius. He was kind of a one-stop shop himself. So it would be, we could do some kind of an anthology jam together, maybe. Honestly, this is going to sound kind of weird, but because it's kind of, who knows what's happening with this right now. But Matt Wagner, I would love to work on Grendel. It's a thing that is like, it's been one of my
Oh man,
goals for a long time, because partially that world's so big and there are all of these threads that he created that are still untapped in his future world of Grendel, and like there's like a samurai element to it. So it speaks to my heart. I'm a big martial arts fan. You see I'm wearing my Bruce Lee shirt.
yeah.
So I don't know. Like I would love to work with Matt Wagner. I absolutely love that what's going on in those books. I'm really bummed that Netflix canceled the Grendel show, even though they shot the entire first season. It makes no sense. So hopefully it gets a home somewhere else. But I mean, yeah, I would just love to work with somebody like that who's just a really prolific, incredible writer. And also he's a great designer. So he would make sure that the book just really looked bold and amazing, so it'd be a pleasure to work on anything that he was involved with.
Well, you never know what the future holds. This is a small industry, and we're all amongst friends. Let's see what we could do to get Kraig a gig on Grendel, everybody.
Exactly.
Thank
We're
you for
talking to you,
tuning in.
Matt Wagner.
Yeah, who's most certainly watching this right now. So we'll be talking soon. Yeah. Kraig, thank you so much for taking the time out to be a part of this. Everybody, again, go to zoop.gg/c/odds and ends. Links are everywhere in the show notes, descriptions. Go support, pick support Kraig. Kraig, again, thank you so much for being here today. Let's kick ass on this campaign, and also find other episodes of this show on YouTube, on Facebook, on Spotify, very soon on iTunes. Mostly we'll be there by the time you listen to this. So thank you all for tuning in. Have yourself a wonderful evening.
Jordan, thanks for having me.